Okay, we're in the sugya of chalitza, how to perform chalitza. We're in Kuf Beis Amid Beis. We're in Kuf Beis Amid Beis, and we spoke about that. You're supposed to use a sandal. A sandal is this classic shoe that we have of a hard leather. B'di'evid, you should not use a minol, which seems to be a softer leather. And everyone was maida that what you shouldn't use not to call an anpilya, which seems to be a sack. So anpilya chiliyatza psula, says the Gemara, one Kuf Beis Amid Beis. I'd say we're about between 12 lines from the bottom by the two dots. Remember the anpilya lav minol? You mean to tell me, since you can't perform chalitza with an anpilya with the sock, that it's not a minol? For Tanam we learned in the Mishnah, the Tanami as well. Ein hatorim nichnis loy bepargud chafus v'loy beanpilya. Ein tzarich loyma b'minol u'v'sandal. 3 times a year they would go ahead and they would go into the Fort Knox of the Beis Hamikdash, the place where they would have the lishka full of coins, the shkolim that had been collected, and they would do what's called trumis halishka. Truma is the lashon of separation, and they would separate. The person who would go in would have to be squeaky clean. In other words, no cheshad whatsoever that he may be taking off the top something. So a pargud chofus, he couldn't wear an outfit that had a hem. If it had a hem, the cheshad is maybe he might put a coin in the hem. Nor could he wear an ampila, and then it says nor a minol or a sandal. So when it says 3 separate things, again, you might put the coin in the shoe or the sock. So when it says it's separately ampilya from sandal and minol, obviously it's a different thing, right? That's the raya. The raya that an ampilya is not a minol, because in the recounting in the Mishnah of what? About the Trumas Alishka, it says it separately. So that would be a raya as a raya. Says you can't go to the azara with a minol or sandal. Reminol asks you a stira. Echad minol v'sandal v'anpilya lo yitayil behem. On Yom Kippur, where it's also to wear a shoe, a leather shoe, you can't go ahead and walk around in a middle sandal or anpilya. Lo mibayis labayis v'lo mimita lamita. So obviously you see it has some type of din of a shoe when you're including it right in walking around on Yom Kippur. So on Rabbi, the isbei katiti, there it's speaking where what? There are ketitim, there is soft, some type of felt or cotton-like material inside. And mishum tanug, and the concern is that what? That's an oinik. So you can't wear this minol because of, so the classic ampilya is not a shoe, but this seems to be, since it has some type of insert that's soft, it would have a din of a shoe, and therefore you can't wear it in Yom Kippur. Mishum tanug b'lei minol Yom Kippurim mi'asiri. It's all Tanuk Asr Yom Kippur. There are only five Inuyim on Yom Kippur. In other words, if this has the din of doesn't have the din of a shoe, and it just has the din of Tanuk, it should be permitted. Rabbi Bar Avhuna Korich Sudre Akare Vinafik. Rabbi Avhuna, he would go ahead, he would take some type of kerchief or handkerchief or some type of suit or a turban and wrap it on his feet and go out. So you see that what? You would be able to put something on your feet. So if anpilya is not a din of a shoe, there should be no reason that you should not be able to wear it, yet you can. So that's the stira. You see on Yom Kippur, you can't wear it. It must be have a din of a shoe, and din of leather, a leather shoe on Yom Kippur is not permitted. So that's the kasha. How over here by we say that it's not a shoe, and by Trumas Alishka we say it's not a shoe, and over here we seem to say it is a shoe. Say Elam Rava, like kasha, not a problem. Kan ba pilya shel or, kan ba pilya shel beged. When is it not a shoe? That's when it's made of a garment. When is it a shoe? When it's made of what? Of or. When it's made of leather. So the Gemara, the Gemara in Yom Kippur regarding going from room to room is speaking about one made of or. And we're by chalitza, and we're speaking about one made of beged, one made of a garment type of material, and therefore it's not a shoe, and therefore since it's not a minol, it doesn't have a shame minol, you can't do chalitza, because you need by chalitza you need the shaf minol meragloi. You take the minol off his foot, it has to have a shame minol, it has to have a shame shoe. Hachnami mistaber to say this is the correct pshat. The loytei mahachi kasha yom kippurim ayom kippurim the Tanya. A person should not go ahead and walk because the kisin. The kisin seems to be some sort of soft shoe. Rashi says, He could walk around with that pillion. So we have a stira. One place it says a pillion, you can't walk around Yom Kippur. And another place he said you could walk around Yom Kippur. How do you reconcile that contradiction? Ella must be lav shmamina. Kan ba'pilya shel or. Where can't you walk around? That's speaking about an apilya made out of leather. Kan, when could you walk around ba'pilya shel beged, one made of a garment material? Shmamina, you have a good raya. Tanya Kavase, the Rava's pshat, cholza b'minol hanifras. If you do chalitza with a minol that's ripped, shechayfa esroiv haregel, but it still covers the majority of the foot. Bisandal hanifras. Rashi brings both nifras and nifras are a lashon of a detraction from the material. If the question is what the material is. By a minol, it seems to be certain it's shaykh to lashon nifras, and by sandal it's shaykh to lashon nifchas. But it means the same thing, that it's basically ruined. So now, now, if you do it since it's received the foot, sham, sieve, some type of a substance, a bast of a tree or rubber, the kav hakiteya, with a kav hakiteya, that's on a person who doesn't have a foot, they would have like some type of prosthetic. B'moik is some type of felt garment. B'smichas haraglayim. It seems the people would schlep along their feet. They would not be able to walk. So he would walk with his hands, and he would put on his feet this garment. That's too large. In all these cases, whether he does it while sitting, while standing, or inclining, if the Yavam is standing, sitting, or inclining, and or someone does chalitza from a suma, he's blind, right? Chalitza kshera, it's a good chalitza. So you see that and pilya, it works. However, that's when it's made of or. That's when it's made of or. The middle on nifra shein chayfes roif haregel. If it's the middle does not cover the majority of the foot, the sandal hanifcha shein mekabelas roif haregel. It's missing and it's not carving the majority of the foot. Haregel ubesmichas hayadayim. That it's something that you put on your hands, not rather than smichas hayadayim is you're putting it on your hands, but not because of the feet. I don't know what the difference was. One is smichas raglayim and smichas hayadayim. This you're putting on your hands. Uban pilya shel beged, one made of beged. V'chletz min hakotin chiletz psula. That'd be psula. So the first part, member of this long-winded brisa, we mentioned that the kav hakiteya, that this prosthetic that was on the foot of an amputee would be considered a shoe. So money, who's the Tana? Kav hakiteya is money is Reb Meir. That's Reb Meir. And the Meir is speaking in Hilchos Shabbos. We know in Hilchos Shabbos, the din of Haitzah, if something has a shem kli, something you can carry it out. It's not muktzah, you can carry it working on Shabbos. On Shabbos, if it's something that's not a tachshit, something that's a masli, then it's also Haitzah. So if you'll be able to wear this shoe out on Shabbos as a raya, that's a shem kli, that it's a tachshit and you can wear it out. It's a piece of clothing. Hakiteya yoytze b'kav shaloi. Hakiteya on Shabbos is able to walk out with his prosthetic. Divrei Reb Meir. These are the words of Reb Meir. Reb Yehud and Reb Yossi Isa. And Reb Yossi would say that it's us to walk out with this prosthetic on Shabbos. Okay, so says the Gemara. If that's the case, ben pilya shel beged asan l'rabbanan. The sefer that said Ampilya shel beged is not a good chalitza, that would come out according to the Chachamim, who disagree with Reb Meir. So you have a problem. On one hand, you have the Reisha being Reb Meir, and the Sefer having being the Rabbanon. Some Rabbayim with the Sefer Rabbanon, when the Sefer is Rabbanon, Reisha Nami Rabbanon. The Reisha is also Rabbanon. The Reisha is speaking with this prosthetic is Reisha b'mechufa or. It's covered with what? It's covered with leather. Since it's covered with leather, they be moed that it has the shem minol. So it's consistent. The Sefer shel beged does not work. And the Reisha is speaking when it's covered with or, and even the Chacham would be moida that has a shem minol, you could do chalitza. Amalei Rava, aval ein mechufa or mai. What's the din? If it wouldn't be covered with leather, puzzle would be puzzle chalitza, right? Yechachi, if that's the case, the Tani Sefer, when you had to jump to the Sefer to teach me a chiddush that it's no good, right? Van Pilya shel beged, that it's speaking about Pilya shel beged. Why do you have to jump to the Sefer? Liflik b'didah. Why don't you go ahead and tell me in the Reisha? What's speaking about the Reisha? Right? When do we say that the chalitza is good? That's a mechayfa or. Avalei mechayfa or puzzle, but if it won't be chayfa or, it will be puzzle. So why don't you tell? We always say, if you can tell me the chiddush in the one case, why do you have to go ahead and introduce the second case? Alama Rava says, Rava, With the Reish Reb Meir, when the first mission is part of Reb Meir, so we're having Charata now. We said it was Rabbanon, now we're saying no. The Reish is Reb Meir, and it's not speaking Chayfa Or. It's speaking about a regular wooden shoe, and it's Reb Meir, L'shitaso says you can go out in Shabbos, Fuadin, it's considered a shoe in Chalitza. Seifa Nam Reb Meir, the Seifa would Reb Meir as well. Why do you mean that you said if it's a beged that it's no good? Hai Mogain, but Hai Loi Mogain. The wooden foot, the difference is that it protects. Mashen came, a sock that's made out of a fabric does not protect, and therefore it would not be what? It would not be good for chalitza. Amar Meima, Haiman the chalitz, sarich lemitchase lekari. Someone who goes ahead and does chalitza, he got to push his foot on the ground. He has to put pressure on the foot. He can't pick up his foot. He has to put pressure. Amar Ravashi la Meima, says Ravashi la Meima of Atanya, we said bein oimid, bein yoshev, bein moita. Top price, guys, we said whether the yavam is sitting, standing, or inclining. Mashma, in those positions, he wouldn't be going ahead and putting pressure on his foot if he was what? If he was sitting or if he was inclining. No, it's not a stira. He could be sitting, he could be standing, and he could be inclining. But as in those positions, on the shoe that the foot she's going to take off, it has to be pressed to the ground. Amema goes ahead and teaches us, Haiman the maske ali chasa de kare. Someone, like the guy, his foot is inverted. And he walks in a funny way, right? You can't do chalitza to him. I'm like, you can't do chalitza to him. It's not a shoe. If it's such a way, you can't. I guess you can't take the foot off in Rashi says you can't take the shoe off in a normal way. Since that's the case, look at Rashi, guys. Alechasa de kare, right? His foot is inverted, and he walks on the upper part of his foot. Lechat is a lashon lafchin, okay. Sheina doris b'makam nidras ragloi, the afal gav, and even so, the afal gav, and even so, the tnan min rakuva lamatak sheira. We said from the knee below it's good. Hasam hu dechi nechtach ragloi kamle shoik. That's because the shoik takes the place. So therefore, this doesn't seem to be a very, very normal way. So since it's not a normal way, you can't go ahead and do chalitza. Says the Gemara, if that's the case, right? If that's the case, for Tanya, we said smuchim reglayim. If he did chalitza with something that was supporting his foot, because remember the guy's a cripple. Lav the chalitz, but who isn't it speaking about that is they're doing chalitza with the thing that's supporting the foot. So even though the guy is a cripple, right, and even though he can't walk, his feet are the same thing as this person's inverted. B'havamina says Maloi the Yov Leila Acher. It's speaking with what the person who's crippled. He gave his foot support. He gave it to a normal guy. The chalitz and the chalitza. Mashenken, if he's a cripple, you can't perform chalitza. Why? Because you can't take it off his foot. It doesn't seem to be normal. Ravashi, according to what Amema said, Lav bar. Some named Bar Uva couldn't perform chalitza, but Lav Bar Kifa chalitza. No, Bar Kifa performed chalitza because they seem to be these people who had this illness. Says the Mishnah, Merkuva Lamata, we said from below the knee. We had a machlokes, guys. Rashi said below the knee is speaking about a person he was deformed, but meaning he was amputated, but his wasn't amputated above the knee, it was below the knee, versus amputated above the knee. And we saw Taisvis, right? We spoke out Rabbi, the Shita. Let's see it again. If the first big line in Taisvis, guys, let's see the first wide line in Taisvis. I will aim there to read the Habi Yushalmi Mufarish Hadik Tani B'Mestisa Min Akuva Lamata Chalitzasak Shera is Hainu B'Koisha Ritzuas Asandal Mi Akuva Lamata. That's where you're taking the straps of the sandals and tying it around the lower part of the leg. Aval B'Kiteya, but if it's speaking about it's cut off like Arimidi, we're not speaking about that at all. So Machloikas. And the Shulchan Aruch paskins like what, like Taisvis. We're speaking about the way you're binding, not speaking about speaking about the Isser in the Chefza, not the Gavra. It's not speaking about there's a problem in the person. Speaking about in the exact way you're tying the okay Urminu. So it says over here that the Yavam takes the shoe from the Yavam's knee, right? And we say that means that below the knee is called the regel. We're getting into anatomy over here. Talmudical anatomy. With mashma that anything below the knee is called a regel. Uriminu, there's a stira. It says regalim. Shalish regalim b'shana yirav kol zchorcha. You should go 3 times a year regalim. Prat lebale kavim. This would exclude someone who's an amputee. He'll be pata from being oila, right? So you see that he's not considered being oil the regel. Because if it's considered part of the regel, then an amputee would be okay. It says Mashani Hacha, the Chsiv me al ragloi. There's a difference. You're right. It's not the regel, but it says me al ragloi. What does me al ragloi mean? From above his leg. You don't need the leg. Me shalaf na'oloi me al ragloi. So this is the leg, and you're me al ragloi. What's me al ragloi? That's the space between the knee and the leg. So the me'ag ragloi goes ahead in chalitza. That part could be used. Mashenken ein achnami. If a person's missing his foot, a foot is kipshutai. A foot is a foot. A foot is a foot, right? And elama. So why over here is it not? Is you're saying it? A foot is not a foot because he doesn't have a foot, and yet in your chalitza it's okay because it says me al raglo from above his foot, so therefore it's accepted. If that's the case, so why are you limiting only to the area below the knee? I feel above the knee because that's all me al raglo, that's above his foot. It says Gemara, it says me al, below me al de me al. It says like view the foot as level 1, 2, and 3. So 2 is above 1, but 3 is above 2. It's not above 1, and therefore it's me al ragle. It's not okay. Amra Papa says Papa Shmamina from the Mishnah. The Mishnah said that that chalitza is below the knee. Hai is stavira ad arenachas. A person's ankle must be considered part of the ground. The isal kedaitach mifsach pasik. If you think that the ankle is considered an area between it and the knee, havile ihu ma'al. Guys, just using my scenario, what I just said, 1, 2, and 3. We must view the foot as 1 and the ankle also as a 1. Because if the ankle wasn't a 1, then it would be the ankle's 2, and then the area above the knee to the ankle, that would be a 3. That would be al de me'al. It must be, we're viewing the ankle as part of the foot, and therefore what? It's considered 1. It's considered me'al ragloi. Rav Ashi, you have no raya. I feel the tema mifsek pasuk. You'd even say the ankle is not connected. It's not connected to the foot, meaning it's not considered one piece. Called them a hade kare kikari dami. Anything that's level with the foot is like the foot itself. Since the ankle is so close to the foot, it's considered part of the foot. So I guess it's 1 and 1a, but not necessary to say it's 2. That would be the best way to explain it. In Akuva Lamaila, we said if the shoe is removed from above the knee, then it's not good. Okay? So it's mashma that the regel doesn't include the area above the knee, which we'll call the thigh. Guys, correct? We'll call the area above the knee from a person's groin to his knee, we'll call that the thigh. So it's mashma, the thigh is not considered the regel. So again, some more nice Gemara of not difficult of the Talmudical anatomy. Master Rav Kahana, you're telling me that the thigh is not considered what? Part of the regel? I'll ask you the following question. It says in the Teichacha that woman ubishal yasa hayotze miben ragleha. It says that what? That the shilya, her afterbirth, that comes out from between her raglayim. Now, in the afterbirth, pashut, guys, comes out from between her thighs of a woman. Yet we're calling it mein ragleha. So you see that what? That the thigh would be called ragleha, would be called regel. Says the Gemara, Mabaya, b'shashe koras leile, when a woman crouches to give birth, ma'etzes akeveha bi'akosid dialda. Her heels press against the thigh, and therefore the heel at that point in time, the thigh is part of the leg. But stamazoi, it's not. Tashma, another proof that the thigh is the leg. It says by Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth came out to greet David after his return from the rebellion of Avshalom. It says like Asa Raglov, like Asa Svamai. It said he hadn't gone ahead and taken care of himself. Raglov is referring to a hair in a certain is the hair in his tachta, in his lower anatomy, which is interesting. I didn't think a man was supposed to go ahead and trim that area. Like Asa Svamai nor his mustache. The bottom line is seeing that the area of the thigh is considered Raglov. It says more Lishnamalia. You're right. It's using a lashon of naki. It's just using a nice lashon, but in nachinami, it's not part of the rega. Tashma, it says Vayova Shol Hosiches Raglov. Shol comes into a cave. Rashi in Navi says he came to defecate. Rashi here says he came to urinate. And Lahosiches Raglov It says the lashon in the Navi says lahasek lashon like a sukkah. He made himself like a schach, like he was covered. He was a tznu in the cave, and therefore David could not go ahead and kill him. The men said to kill him, but David took one look at him and he couldn't kill him. Okay, that's just a little jeopardy for you. And now it says over here, that's considered lahasek as raglov. So what's he doing? He's squatting, and it's considered his. If he's urinating, it's coming from the thigh area of his body, and it's called raglov. So that's probably why Rashi says urinating over here. If we're lishma alya in achinami, we're using a lashon naki. Tashma, eich mesechu esraglav bahada hamakera. It says by Ehud ben Gera, by Eglon met Moav and Shaftim, where he went ahead and he was a very fat man, and he went to this attic to cool himself off, because it says that he covered his raglayim in this becheda hamakera. It was like a cool area. And you see that it's called raglayim, even though it's referring to him going to the bathroom. It says more the same teretz lishna ma'alya. He's using a nice lashon. Lishna ma'alya. He's using a nice lashon. It says the Gemara ben raglecha. It says by Yael. The background over here: Sisra and Yovin, Melech Canaan, they were oppressed Bnei Yisrael, and we had Devorah and Barak overcoming them. Sisra goes ahead and loses the battle. He runs away. He comes to the tent of Yael, Eishes Chever Hakeni. And it says she killed him. She pegged him in his head. She gave him what to drink. But in fact, she did more than that. She had relations with him in order to weaken him. So it says over here, the Gemara in Taina says is Gedoyla Avei Lishma. It said tremendous the Avei Lishma that she did. So what does it say over there? It says that Bein Ragleha, the lashon is Bein Ragleha. That's a lashon of Bia. Yes, it says Ragleha. It says more Lishma Alya, again, the same teretz. It says Lishna Ma'alya. So now, since we're discussing Yael, the Gemara is going to continue to discuss Yael. I'm Rabbi Yochanan. Sheva Bila is boil Oisa Rasha. That Sisra was 7 bias he lived with Yael that day. Shneimar Bein Ragleha Kara Nafal Shachav. He bent, he fell, he lay. Bein Ragleha Kara Nafal, and there's 7 Lashinas. Kasher Kara Sham Nafal Shadai. Just where he bent, that's where he lost his life. So you see, you have 7 verbs over here. Each verb, bent, he fell, he lay down, is referring to bia. So he's boiled 7 times. Fed the Gemara, how could Yael do this? She's having enough from the Aveira. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yechim, Kol Tavasa Shal Rishayim Amid Beis, all the Tavasas of Rishayim Rohi Eitzel Sadikim. Says Rashi, why is all good for Russia is bad for, even though it's bad for the tzaddik? Shesoinim HaRishayim, they hate Rishayim. The kotz and nefesh tzaddik b'hana asan, and the nefesh of the tzaddik is disgusted by it. Hilkach lav hanahi. So even though Yael Pashto is having physical hana, the psychological idea that Sisra is having hana is something disgusting to her, and that would be considered not hana. Okay. So now, where do you know this from? Shneimar, it says Hisham lecha pen tedaber im Yaakov bitoy v'adra. Lavan is warned by HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a dream not to go ahead and speak to Yaakov Avinu either good or bad. Now, Bishneimar ra l'chai, very good. We can understand not to speak to him in a bad way. Elatoy v'may loy. Why, if it's good, why not to speak to him? Whatever good, but it was by Lavan was bad for Yaakov. They're what he worried about over there. What bad? Bishnei over there, you're worried that he's going to say the Shema Avodah Zarah, and therefore we don't speak to him afilu toiv. Elohacha my raw ikka. Because right, what possible beard come out over here? What's the beard over here? Says Gemara by Yael. Says Gemara the koshadi besuhama. Now he went ahead and placed in him the disgust. In other words, we say the guy we spoke about this in Masechta Shabbos that the snake Hanachash Yishiani, that the Nachash had bia with Chava and placed in Chava the Suhama. The Gemara discussed how we got rid of it, either through the Abyss or through being by Har Sinai. And it says over here, Dom Rabbi Yochanan, V'shoshepa Nachash al Chava. When Nachash was with Chava, he was Suhama. He placed in Chava the Suhama. He placed in Chava, placed the Suhama, this disgust that again we spoke out in not too long ago why the Givoinim were not allowed to Kal Hashem. We said he didn't stand by Har Sinai. You remember we spoke this out that since they have the original Suhama that's why they don't have the midas of the Jew. They're not by Shon and Rahman Magon Lechasadim. They carry with them the cruelty of the Goyim. So they have that. We spoke this out at length in that Daf Ayin Zayin in Ayin Ches in Yevamot. Anyway, weiter. So it says over here, B'shasha bad nachash al chava hitlu basuham Yisrael shon v'al Sinai plus kazu amason. It stopped. Oiv the chacham shlo yomdu bar Sinai, the chacham that natzne bar Sinai loy plus kazu amason. Chotz min shena shaloi. We said das chalitza but shena shaloi. It's okay. Tanrabanan na'oloi ainli ela na'oloi. It says shlof na'oloi. His now. That's only his now. Now shall kol adam inayim. How do you know the now of any other person is acceptable? Talmud Leimar na'al mikol makan. It's mashma double lashon na'al. It says it twice to tell me to include any na'al, even if the na'al is borrowed. It's not his na'al. It's okay. If anyone came out Talmud Leimar na'oloi. So if you say that it's lav dafke his na'al, why say na'oloi his na'al? Why say the lashon of his if it's not true? It says na'al. It's got to be a na'al that the borrowed na'al has to be one that properly fits him. Pratli gadol, this would exclude a gadol, a person who is she'ein yachal lahoylech by. It's too large for a person to walk. The shoe is too large. Upratli cotton she'ein chayfa roiv ragloy. It's too small to cover the majority of his foot. Upratli sandal hamsuloyim she'ein loy akev. Prat for a sandal that has a sole but does not have a back. It does not have a place that it would fall off his foot. Okay, so now we saw in the Mishnah that not only his foot, that also a left foot on the right would be okay. Left on the right would be okay. Says the Gemara. Abaye came to front of Yosef. Asi Yevamot lachloit. So Yevamot came to do chalitza. For some other reason, the Yevamot did not have his own shoe. So Amalei, so Rabbi Yosef told Abaye, Havle sandalach, give him your shoe. Lend him your shoe. So Yovle sandala, the smiler. So Abaye gave him his left shoe. Amalei Rabbi Yosef, Amidon Rabbanon, that the left shoe is okay. That's the Evet. That's dafke be the Evet. That to use the left shoe on the right foot, is that okay? So Amalei Abaye told Rabbi Yosef, Yihachi, if that's be the Evet, sandal shein shaloi nami. A sandal that's not his also should be the Evet. So how can you tell me to give him my shoe? Says Rabbi Yosef, Amidon Rabbanon the Avel in lechatchila miyamar. So Amalei, so Rabbi Yosef told him, Hachi kaminolcha. Havle va'aknele. Give it to him and be maknet him. Give it to him as a present, be maknet to him, that he could go ahead and use it for a chalitza. But I never told you to give him his. But it's all b'di'eved to use a borrowed shoe. It's also b'di'eved to go ahead and use a left shoe on the right foot. Sandal shel eitz. We said a sandal shel eitz. Mantana. This is Mantana. The sandal shel eitz. Amashmul Ramehi. The sandal shades. Why is sandal shades acceptable? That nan hakiteya. We just had this Gemara. Hakiteya, someone who is an amputee. Yaitze b'kav shaloi div remeya, because it's considered a middle. It's considered a shoe. And pashtus is made from wood. Rabbi Yossi Eiser. Rabbi Yossi would say what? That it's asa. Rabbi Yossi would say that Eiser, that what? It's asa. Avu the Shmuel Oimer. This is the text we gave before. No, this one of eights is made of eights, but it's gone ahead and it's covered with leather. Since it's covered with leather, that would give it, even like Rabbi Yossi, that would give it the shame of a shoe, right? It's only, what's the problem of a wooden shoe? It's not a shoe. According to Rabbi Yossi, it's not a shoe. That's it. Like Rabbi Meir, it's called a shoe. Like Rabbi Yossi, it's not called a shoe. Once you go ahead and cover the wooden shoe with leather, then it's called a shoe. Once it gets the same shoe, then you could use it for chalitza. Once you use the same shoe, you can use it for chalitza. Amra Papi Shmei the Rava. Okay, a little background over here to understand the next piece of Gemara. Just like there's a din of tsuras in the person, like by Miriam, right? There's a din of tsuras in houses. There's also a din of tsuras in begodim. So let's say you have a tsuras in a beged. The kohen would put it away for 7 days. That would be considered muskar. It's sagar. If the 7 days, if it would come, and it would get bigger, then you would go ahead and say you would burn it. If it stayed the same, you'd put it away for another 7 days. And then if it stayed the same, it didn't get less, you'd burn it after 14 days, you'd burn it. Okay? So muskar means it's in the state of ascertaining whether it should be burnt or not. And muchlit would mean you had a chalata, you had a decision that this in fact is what is supposed to be burnt. Good? So muskar is what? Put away to ascertain its status. And muchlit means you got a psak halacha that this is tsaras. Once you get the psak halacha, you have to burn it. Okay, says the Gemara. Let's see what we got with that in mind. Amra Papi Mishmei the Rava. Sandal hamuskar, a sandal that's put away to ascertain whether it's tzaras or not. Loy tachlitz boy, you shouldn't be chaylitz with it. However, v'mcholza chalitza k'sheira. If you use it, it's a good chalitza. Sandal hamuchlit, a sandal that has been prescribed. You've ascertained without a shadow of a doubt that it's tzaras. The Kohen said it's tzaras. Loy tachlitz boy, v'mcholza chalitza psula. And if you do, it's puzzle. Guys, the lumdus over here is very, very interesting. It's very similar to something we saw in Masech the Sukkah. Why can't you use of an avodah zara, an asherah? Why can't you use a lulav and asherah? Because ketute michtai sheura. It's considered that it's not there. It's considered burnt. Of an erni dachas, it's considered burnt. Since this beged, since this shoe is going to be burnt because it's tzaras, says Rabbi, you can't use it. It's not there. There is no shoe. So even though, as we spoke, there is a physical shoe, it's not a halachic shoe, right? We spoke the other day about knowing who the paternal father is, but halachically he's not the father. So who adin over here? It's an example of you have a shoe, you have a physical shoe, but halachically it's not there. We'll consider it burnt already. That's our papi shita, guys. Good. That's our papi shita. We can consider it burnt already. Meisive on Rav Papi, we can ask Rav Papi. So we said just like there's a din of tzaras in a shoe, there's a din of tzaras in the house. Now we know if you walk into the house, automatically it's like walking into a place where there's a mace. It's like it's your oil, your tummy right away. What about touching? So now it depends. If the house was muchlit or muskar. Bias hamuskar, again, it's in the state of ascertaining whether it's a bais menuga or not. Mitama misoichai. If you touch the inside of the house, you're tamei. Right? Muchlit misoichu u'machoirav. If it's a house that's standing there to be destroyed, because you know for sure it's a house of tzaras, whether you touch the inside or even the outside, you'll be tamei. And each one will be mitama bebia. They're mitama walking in the house. If you're going to view the house, if it's not there, guys, you're telling me, guys, look at me. You're telling me by chalitza that the shoe is there, but it's not there. You're telling me he's wearing a shoe, but the shoe is armored to be burnt, so it's missing a shear. So what about this? You walk into a house that you decided the house is a house of Mitzvah, right? What are you going to do with this house? You're going to burn it. So how can it be tamei by walking into the house? There is no house. Yet he is tamei. So you see, there is a house. Kasher Rav Papi. Just like there's a house, there's a shoe. And therefore, for a shoe of a muchlit, that a beged muchlit, you should be able to go ahead and use for a shoe for chalitza. Says no. Rav Papi says no. Shiny Hasim, it's different by the house. The Amakra, because the pasuk says, the not satzas abayis is avona ves etza ves kol afar abayis. You break down the house. So afilu b'shas netitza. See, even the time with nutsas, you're breaking it down. Kori bias, we call it a bias. So since we're calling it a bias, what we see that even though really it's not there, since the Torah calls it a bias, it's there. Masha'en came by the beged, which the Torah does not call it there. Says Rav Papi, it's not there, and therefore you can't use a minnow of a muchlit, a mitzvah muchlit for what? For chalitza. Toshma, matlis is a patch. Sheyesh ba shalosh al shalosh. Okay, what I always tell you guys, shalosh is espois or amis. It's espois, right? Remember, in numbers, it's always the opposite. If it's male, it's female, and if it's female, it's male. So shloisha would be right? Shloisha, right? That's female, right? Shloisha would be male, and its boys shaloish would be what? So shloisha would be tfachim, which is male. Shaloish is its boys. So if you have a patch that's 3 ets boys by 3 ets boys, which is the minimal share for a beged, for an ani, afal pi she'en ba kazayas. Now this is fascinating. There's a size and there's volume. The volume has very thin thread. so it doesn't have the volume of a kazayas. Now, we're not speaking about the barachila. We're speaking about what? A patch. But here's the mitzias. You have the width and length of a patch, but you don't have the weight of it. You don't have the volume of it. It's very thin thread. Ruba. Now this is it has tsaras on it. Since it comes in, a roiv of it comes into the house. Ruba lebayis tahar timatahu. You're bringing this patch of mitzayra. It has tsaras. It doesn't have a kazayas. Once roiv goes into the house, then the house will be tameh. It's tahar, but you'll be mitam of the house. My love. Now, what happened over here, guys? If we're going to view the part that goes in as not there, so you never had the shear to go ahead and what? And be mitam of the house. But Papi says that physically it's there, but halachically it's burnt. So over here, if you're telling me that this is speaking about a patch of a mitzayra muchlit, why would it be mitam of the house? You never had a shear because the part, it's not there, the part that went in. Says the Gemara, my love, muchletes, loy muskeres. It's a patch that we haven't decided unequivocally that it's what? Mitzayra, it's in the state of figuring it out. Yihachiyem is seifa. That's the seifa of this is a mission in the Goyim. Hayibakama zaysim. Let's say it was very thick. It was 3 by 3 etzbois, very thick wool or whatever it was made out of, and its volume was many zaysim. Even if you don't get roiv, you only get a kazayas of it in the house. Lebeis tahor timasehu. You can tell me about it's mitzayra muchlit. Haynu de iskish lemesh. You know what's the kazayas, guys? Outside. A kazayas min ames can be mitama. Good. So the only way a mitzayra can mitama a house with oil is the share of the kazayas. Good. So now, what's compared to a mace? A vaday mitzayra. Or one that's not a vaday mitzayra is not compared to a mace. So what are you doing over here? You're bringing in a patch. A kazayas of the patch makes it into a house, not roiv. The house is tameh. Why? Because you compare it to a mace. Bishlema, if you're telling me it's a patch that's from a muchlit, that it's a vaday mitzayra, it makes sense why the house is tameh. But if you tell me it's musker like the reisha, why should the house be tameh? So therefore, that you're going to have to redo the reisha. Says the Gemara. If you're telling me that the reisha is speaking about muchlit and musker, then you got a problem for the sefer. This patch that's 3 by its place, 3 its place, that has the volume of many zaysim. To the house tahar, tematzohu. It's going to be the time of the house. You can tell me this is what a mitzayra muchlit. Hainu de iskish lemeis. That's very good. Why we compare it to a mace. If you're telling me it's a mitzayra muskeres, am I iskish lemeis? So therefore, you're right. So guys, let's put the word ella in. So what was that teretz? The ratio is musker. The problem is the sefer clearly must be speaking about muchlit. So if the sefer is muchlit, the ratio also must be muchlit. So back to our original question. If the ratio is muchlit, why is the house tummy at all? Since it's halachically not there, right? It's just like by the minol, it's not there. By the beged, it's not there. So you never have roiv going into the house. That's the kasha. On Rav Papi. Ella, put the word Ella in there. Ella shiny hasam. It's different by mitzayra. The Omakra, because the pasuk says, "V'saraf es abeged, oyes ashi." It says the same teretz we gave by the house. V'notzes es abayis. We still consider it a house. Over here it says "V'saraf es abeged." That even after it's unequivocally mitzayra, it's still called a beged. Masha'enkin by minel, it's not. Says the Gemara, I feel b'shas reifah kari beged. Good. So what do we learn, guys? By bias, even after it's mitzayra, it's still called bias. By beged, even after beged, it's still called beged, even after it's mitzayra. By minal, not. So let's learn out. Let's learn out the halacha. So too by if it's a mitzayra shoe by minal, let's go ahead and say you can't do chalitza with it. Says the Gemara, "V'ligma minei isami tuma loy garminon." We don't learn out what isami tuma. Okay, because the halachas of tumah are very limited to what they are. So Amarava Hilchas of halacha is echet sandal hamuskar, whether it's a sandal that is you haven't decided whether it's a mitzayra. Echet sandal shemuchlit, that unequivocally, for sure it is mitzayra. Echet sandal shalabayis kechavim loy tachleitz lichatchila, don't use it. So Rav is arguing with Rav Papi. He's saying that even by chalitza, you could use the mitzvah shoe, regardless of the shoe, the shoe itself of tsaras, whether it's muskor, even muchlet, you would be able b'di evet to use it. B'di evet, you could use it. However, shall takroivus avodas kechavim, an animal, a shoe that was made from an animal that was used for avodah zara, one was set aside. This was used for avodah zara. Amin aleph, v'shel irni dachas, or of a city that majority of the people in the city did avodah zara, and everything in the city has to be burnt. V'shel zaken hasei lichvaydai, or this for a zaken that was made lichvaydai. This is tachrichin, guys. Let's say it's a shoe that's tachrichin for the mace. That is set for the mace. Like tachlitz, them chalsa chilusas b'sula. These and all these, if you did chalitza, it would be puzzle. Omer Ravinu Ravashi, Maishna zaken us lichvaydai the lavli luchayavid. The reason why it's not made for the purpose of walking, therefore you can't use it. The Beidina Nami Lavli Luchavid, a chalitza shoe, no one's going to walk around in a chalitza shoe, right? Pashtas. So the chayra, since it's not made to be walked, how can you have a chalitza shoe? It's not made to be used. So just like tachrichin is not made to be walked in, so to that shoe that's not made to be walked in, you should not be able to go ahead and do chalitza with. Amalei. So Ravashi told Ravina, Ilu maske be shlucha de Beidina. If a messenger, a shliach of Besdin, would go ahead and walk in it, mikapela the dina, would the dayan say no? So he wouldn't say no. So therefore, since he wouldn't say no, right? Therefore, it'd be okay. It's acceptable. Okay. Thanks everyone for listening. I'll let you know about tomorrow, what the story is with tomorrow. We'll try.